Morning.
Morning.
How are you?
Morning.
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 Reason my headphones are not picking up for some reason. Sure. One second, everybody. Oh, that's the one. Okay. There we go. Somebody say something.
Good morning.
All right, works. Good morning. Okay. So let's see. Today's Thursday, right? Today we'll be continuing with the JavaScript that we began on Tuesday. You know your projects are due tonight by 11:59, right? So right just before midnight. I can't put midnight. It's a complicated thing. So 11:59 it is. So make sure that you have those in. If you have questions or problems, please just let me know. There will, let's see, the project description, the second half, right? The second project will be up by tomorrow also. So you can take a look at that. There'll be no, I don't think I have an additional homework. There's a homework from Tuesday, and that's due next Tuesday. So I don't have another homework for you for today. So that'll be just the one on Tuesday. It'll be the one that you need to work on for next Tuesday. Okay, so before we get started, you're working on your projects, I presume. So anybody having any issues or questions about what they're doing, technically speaking, that maybe we can cover today in class? No, everything's all good. Everything looks the way you want it to look. Okay, y'all, I have to say that this is a class I have the fewest questions from. So nobody ever asks me any questions, so it's unusual for a technical class for people not to ask questions. So please, my suggestion, my thoughts are go ahead, the whole point of a class like this is for you to ask questions to clear things up. If you're not 100% sure why stuff is going the way they need to go. That's what my job is, right? To help you figure things out. So particularly when we're doing JavaScript, I hope you will start asking questions. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in and make sure everything is set up. Go ahead and set up your folders as always, right? With the index and the rest of the folder system. Let's see. I think mine's all ready to go. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so just a little bit more than what I normally do. I just have a couple of extra pairs of div tags to begin here. One with the ID buttons or BTNS and the other with IMG. You can kind of imagine what they might be there for. And then, of course, the typical setup here with the four subfolders and my index. And there's the index. I have one image in my images folder. So you might want to go ahead and download it. It's just a sunset image. That's all. So any image will do. We'll need that later. You can reuse an old image. You can download a new one. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type my link tag for my CSS. but I don't have the file yet, so I'm gonna have to create that. Same old, same old. And then new file for CSS over here, which I'm going to call styles.css. Okay. Everything turns black. The title's still there. It's just black on black. We can't see it, right? So let me add the rest. Temporary background color. Let's see that here. There we go. Take out that background color now. Actually, let's do it different. Yeah, we'll leave that color. Now let's temporarily look at the other divs. Remember in my index, I have the buttons div and the img div. There's nothing in them right now, so let's see what we can do with that. Let's see how. Temporary background color. Let's center that title there. Our heading. Okay, and then I take the height off it. Check this in a minute, but make sure everything's all set up. All right, let's see. All right, good. So both of my divs are there. I'm gonna remove background colors. I know they're there. They have the heights and widths that I want. course, you can leave the background color if you like. How's that going?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Take your time. No hurry.
I'm done.
Okay, 1 second. All right. Is everybody done? Anybody need me to show you anything else?
Can you go
Okay.
back to the index?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I'm good.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some buttons here, even though we won't quite do them yet, but we're going to need them eventually. So might as well put them in there so we can see them. Input equals button, ID equals add value. Well, let's do value first. Put that in there first. Let's add a couple of text boxes too, because we'll use those as well. And I'll put them above here. We'll add more stuff to these in a minute. I just want to see what they look like for now. Um, okay. So they're not going to do anything yet, right? I mean, you can type in this, but there's nothing's going to happen yet, right? So we'll eventually use those form elements to make something happen. Now we're going to go ahead, now that we sort of prepared the basics that we need for the HTML and CSS, let's go ahead and create a link to our JavaScript. I haven't created these yet, but I already know what I'm going to do. Okay. All right. Y'all ready to start JavaScript? You got all this?
Not
Yeah.
yet.
Not yet. Okay, so let me know.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's create that file in the JS folder. Call it script01. Make sure it's in your JS folder here, script01.js. So we have so far our style sheet, HTML file, and the script file. So a quick little reminder. Few notes here. Okay, so on Tuesday, right? These are the main things that I defined for you, right? We talked about the different types of data, numerical data, string data, and Boolean data. And I showed you some examples of those. And then we explored a little bit the idea of variables. All of this, of course, I mean, all we ever do is play around with data when we're dealing with internet, well, when we're dealing with programming or anything to do with computers, really. And then variables are something we're going to use in every single class. So these are like two of the most fundamental things that we have to work with. The next thing, and I did explore this a little bit, I defined it for you, is this idea of functions, and we'll do more functions here today. So let me define what a function is. I'm not defining these because I think that because I'm going to like give you a quiz or anything. But I think it helps to give you a definition to understand, to begin to understand what they do and how the different parts of the language have different kinds of jobs, right? So, I mean, there's a lot that I teach you in a class like this. It's super condensed, right? And so I'm like throwing a ton of information out to you. Try not to be too hard on yourself if you forget easily. It's just the way it is. But you know, the more you use the language, the more, like any language, right? If you are learning Spanish or English, right, the more you use it, the better, the more it sticks into your brain. It is really exactly like learning any kind of language. All right, I'm going. All right, enough with the definitions. So we built-in functions. So once again, a function is like an action, anything that can happen, right? So for example, stuff that happens in the page are when you make something appear or disappear, or in our case, what we did on Tuesday is I made the alert box pop up, right? Also, I send information to the console, right? Let us go ahead and open up the console since we're going to need that. So I'm going to go to, I'm using Firefox, so I go to the window, I'm sorry, the tools menu, browser tools, and then web developer tools, and that opens everything up down here. And Firefox is how I showed you on Tuesday. Let me open up Firefox. I mean, not Firefox, Google Chrome, sorry. In Google Chrome, it's view, well, that's one way, developer view, and then developer tools. Another way in Google Chrome is here, I think. Let me see, I can remember. More tools, and then developer tools. So you click the three buttons, more tools, and then developer tools. So those are the two ways in Google Chrome. So you can see that there's a difference the way the browsers render a little bit. And these boxes and stuff, the buttons and the text boxes. Let's go ahead and modify that a little bit. I forgot to do that with CSS so that that looks a little bit better. Okay, so before we even begin the JavaScript, let's do a little bit more CSS. So I'm going to go to my styles again. I want to first modify the text boxes. I'm going to make it so that there's two of them and only the two text, like you notice if I make the browser window wider, all of everything sits in the middle like this, right? And everything gets on that line. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to create what we call, since there's two things, right? These two things that I'm going to style at the same time. I can't use the input because then it'll style my buttons too. I don't want to style my buttons. I only want to style the text boxes. So I have to have a way to distinguish between the text boxes and the buttons because I can't use the input tag because if I do that, it'll style them all the same, but they're distinctly different things, right? So I'm going to create what's called a class. We did this once before. So for input, I'm going to put class for the button, the text box, I put class equals txt. I'll do that for both text boxes. And then for button type, I'll put btn. Right, so the class for my text boxes is text txt, and for a button is btn. So that's a way for me to distinguish between the two different things, even though they're using the same tag. So these are two text boxes. These are two buttons. It's not going to change anything here yet because I haven't styled txt or btn yet. Okay. So they have their classes. I'm going to save that. And now I'll go back to CSS. I'm going to style the text class first. That's how you do a class, is with a dot. An ID is with the hashtag or £. Let's do the width. Make it, well, let's not do width yet. Let's do margin. Make it 5 pixels. That'll put more space around the boxes. Let's see what that does. Right, puts a bit more space around them, right? And between them. Let's change the width. Now there's 2 boxes. You think I might divide it in half and put 50%, but because I added the 5 pixels, that's not going to work the way I think. Right? It doesn't work the way I want. I want one text box here and one text box right next to it. So I have to do something less than 50% or slightly less. Let's try 48. Let's try 39% first. Let's see what happens. Still doesn't work. It makes it a little smaller, but it doesn't go to the same line. Save that. 48. Still doesn't work. 7. Still doesn't work. 6. That worked. Okay. Okay. All right, let's do the BTN class now. Now there are 4 of those right now. So I want to give a margin as well of 5 pixels. What that does. Good, that spaces things out a bit nicely. Width. So it's 4, so let's try, I know 25% is going to be too much. But so that gets 3 of them. So let's try something a little less. Let's try 23%. See what that does. Nope, 22%. That works. Now, if I were really interested in making this look exactly the way I want, I would play around a little bit more with it, but it's fine for now. It gives you a little bit of an idea of stuff we can do to make it look better. I've already shown you a bit with that in previous, when we use the buttons as links, right? So you can look back on older CSS experiments when we were using buttons for linking pages and create external links. Now I'm going to change what it says in the button so that, what does sub mean? I would prefer that this just spelled out the word so that the user really understands what it all means. So we've got the CSS, everything looks pretty fine. Now let's go back to the index. Instead of value, add and sub. Add is fine, right? Let's do subtract here for the value, multiply for the next one, and divide here. There we go. Now, at some point, right? Even when we start to make it too small, nothing fits anymore. So we need to have a minimum width here. Let's see what that will be. Oh, I spelled multiply wrong. Okay, so min width for the wrapper. Let's see. 400 maybe. Oops, pixels. It's probably going to be a little more than that today. Yeah. Oh, not the wrapper. Yeah, the wrapper. That's what it is. Let's see. Nope. Put that color back here for a second so I can see. Okay, 520 works. Let's see if we can do 510. Nope, 520 it is. Okay, I think we're ready to do JavaScript then. So we have everything set up so that it doesn't, we can make it smaller, but the wrapper only gets so small so that it doesn't change the way the page looks, right? Too drastically. And then we have these classes that affect the form elements, the 2 text boxes and the 4 buttons. Okay, I think we're all set. Let's go back to the script. So I am going, as you might have guessed, I'm going to do a little bit of functionality with basic arithmetic operations, right? Addition, subtraction, multiply, and divide. So let's play around with that first. We're going to need some variables to store numbers. So let's say let's do this a little differently. That's fine. Now, I showed you that you could declare and initialize a variable in the same. So for example, declare initialize is to assign them values, right? For the first time. So num1 equals 100, num2 equals 200, right? So this is when we put those in two separate steps. We can also do it together, right? If you want. Depends on what you want to do. So var sum equals num1 plus num2, right? We could do that. We could do it all in one step, right? The declaring and the initializing all at once if we want to. And then we can make use of variables in functions. And I'll just do a simple one in console log. Which should show me the sum, right? Which is num1 plus num2, which is 100 plus 200, which is 300. So that should show up as 300 in your console when you run it. Okay. Excuse me. All that is stuff we did on Tuesday. So it's a bit of a reminder. All of this is super important, right? We're going to be doing this all the time. We can also, I commented that out so that it just this doesn't appear all the time in the console. We can also declare multiple variables at once if we want to, right? So if we know we're going to be using a lot of variables and we already kind of know what we need them for example, let's say we're going to create things like, let's say we're going to create a square. And the square is going to move around and it's going to rotate, right? So if we were to draw the square, we would need a variable for the size of the square, right? For the width and the height, which is going to be the same. We would need a variable for the X and the Y positions. If it's moving around, we would need a variable for its speed. If it's rotating, we would need a variable for the angle of rotation, right? And so all of those things are things we could create variables for one single object. So if I know I'm going to do that, then I probably already have in my mind all the variables that I would need for it. Sometimes then we want to just go ahead and declare all those variables up front. So, and how do we do that? We may not know the values yet, but we know we're going to need them, right? So declaring multiple variables. If I know that I'm going to need 3 variables, say, so I can do var n1, n2, and s, right? I can do it like this. Now I've created these variables, I've declared them, but I haven't assigned them values yet. I still have to assign them values in separate lines, but I can declare them all together once like this. If I want to, if I know ahead that that's what I'm gonna need. Okay, so we're gonna create a function now. So we're going to do a function, create a function that does that. Function that creates a sum of the variables n1 and n2, right? And then outputs the sum into the console, right? Which is down here. Okay, so let's do that. So in order to create a function, we need to use the word function, lowercase, that creates a function, a user-defined function. Then we have to give it a name, right? It could be anything we wanted. Just like creating a variable, right? We can create a variable and name it whatever we like, pretty much. Functions, the same thing. So, but usually I like to give names to things that tell us a little bit about what their contents are or what its job is, how it's gonna, what is it gonna do in my program. So I'm gonna create a function that creates a sum, right? So how about we call it add it. I can't use add because that's a word reserved by JavaScript. So I'm gonna use add it, right? Since it's a function, then it needs the parenthesis. And then followed by that, we use the braces. And in between the braces is where we put what the function does. So the next step here is I need to assign values to n1 and n2. So n1 equals, I'm just going to use, say, 10. Just random value, just made it up. And 2 equals 15. Okay. And then S is going to be the sum, right? So S equals N1 plus N2. And then the last step is to output into the console. So console.log S. Okay. Now, if I run this, nothing happens. I don't get anything here. Before, when I did it here without, that worked, right? That put out 300, right? So this line of code will spit out 300 into the console here. I'm going to comment that out though. And so the question is, why doesn't this one? Right? Well, that's because we've put this inside the function, right? The function called addIt. This is us just defining the function. This is not making the function happen, right? This is all, none of this is in a function. That just happens automatically. But if you put something in a function, this is us defining what the hell addIt is, right? We have to tell, the computer doesn't know what addIt is. We just made that up. And so we made this function addIt up, and then we have to tell the computer what addIt is. And this is us telling the computer what this function is going to do. But we haven't told it to run the function yet. If we want the function to run, if we want it to do this function, then we have to call the function by name. And we just type the name of the function, add it. This is what runs the function, right? So calling a function activates it and runs it. All right, so now I'll see 25 because that's n1 plus n2, and I output S. Okay. Does that make sense? So here is us defining a function, and here is us calling the function, which activates it, right? So I'm going to put that there. Okay, let's do that again. Let's do subtraction then. I'm going to create or define another function here. Call it subit. Now, I have told the function what n1 and n2 are in the addit function, right? But I haven't told it what n1 and n2 are in the subit function is, right? So it doesn't know. So I need to tell it what the values here are. Let's make different values. Let's say, I don't know, 50 and 2 equals 75. What are we gonna, is it still called a sum if you subtract the result of a sum? What is that? I forgot the word for. We have, does anybody remember that? What is the name for the result of subtraction? I think I learned that once in
I think it's
elementary.
just difference.
The difference. Ah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's call D. Oh, we didn't define D. We have to declare D up here. Let's do that. We have to declare D first before we use it, right? So then D here equals n1 minus n2, which is going to be a negative number, obviously. And then console.log D.
N1 minus.
Oh, thank you. No, I don't want to call add it anymore, so I'm going to comment that out, and I'm just going to call the second function just by name, like so. Let's see what happens. It should be negative 25, which it is. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and do the other two as well. The multiplication and the subdivision. Function mulpt it. So once again, so for multiplication, the result is a product, right? So I'll put P for product up here. So n1 equals, I don't know, 8, and 2 equals 7. P equals n1 times n2. And then console.log P. Okay, so that means we need to call it here and make sure that gives us the answer we want. Then we get 56 this time, which is exactly what we want. Let's do division. Okay. All right, let's see. Function, div it. And 1 equals, I don't know, 32, and 2 equals 5. Oh, it's called a quotient. So we put Q up here. Q for quotient. Q equals N1 over N2. And then console.log Q. Right, let's see. See what we get here. 6.4. Okay. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So great. We know we got the functions, right? We define the functions and we call the different functions. I'm going to comment this last one out now too. We know how to define them. We know how to call them, right? But let's call them, we have buttons here. Why don't we call the functions by the buttons instead of calling it down here, right? We've done that before, right? With the on click for the buttons. So let's do that. So that means we need to go to the index. And for each of these buttons, we're going to use on click to call the function. So the add button on click equals add it. Now, before I do the others, I want to make sure that works. So I'm going to save it, reload my page. Oh, why did it still print out 64? Hold on a second. I guess I didn't save this. Make sure you save this because we commented out that down at the bottom. Now let me see. Reload. Good. 6.4 doesn't appear. Nothing appears now. It's only going to appear when I click on that button. Hopefully. So I click on add. It does. Now we see 25. Great. So let's do subtract. And make sure that one works. Great. On click equals multiply. That works too. Equal to it. And that works too. So they all work. So I could click on all of them, right? And they all work. Okay. But let's make this a little bit more interesting. What about instead of just putting some random numbers and having it, why don't we have the user type numbers in these two boxes? So I can type, I don't know, 25 and 19, right? And add and subtract those numbers and divide them if I want, right? Then the answer can appear down here. Well, that means that's not going to work yet, right? Because we have to input those values into the functions, right? So the functions right now have numbers that I typed into them, right? 10, 15, 50, 20, 75, 8, 7, blah, blah, blah. But what if I want these numbers instead? Now, we don't know what the user is going to type in there. There's no way for us to know. They could type in any number at all. So we can't put hard numbers in there. We have to figure out a way to get the number out of the text box and put it into the functions. Get the number out of the text box and put it into the functions. Now, I haven't told you exactly how to do this yet, but I have told you a function we could use to do stuff like this. Can you think of any function we use on Tuesday in which we can get something?
Get element by ID.
Yeah, exactly. But so if we want to get anything, that word get is important there, right? If I want to get this number out of this box, then I can use document.getElementById, by ID, right? But that means that these boxes have to have IDs first, which I haven't given them yet. So I want to go to my index and give the text boxes IDs. It doesn't matter the order that I have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 attributes in my input. Now I need another one. I could put it at the end, I could put it in the middle. I'm gonna just go ahead and type it in the beginning here, just because it's easy. It's not the button, it's here. ID equals, what are we gonna call this? I don't know what to call it. I'll just call it number 1. ID equals number 2. So I can use those IDs to get whatever number out of those text boxes I want. Okay, so I've given the two text boxes IDs of number 1 and number 2. Now let's go back to my script. And I'll start with add it. I don't want to put 10 here or 15. I want to get whatever numbers are typed in those text boxes. So for here, we put document.getElementById, and we put number 1. That gets the box, but it doesn't get the number, right? We want to get the number in the box. So to get the number in the box, we have to put so this is the box, but we want the number in the box. So we put dot value. Okay, same here. I'll just copy and paste. Oops. Not number 1 this time, but number 2. Okay, let's see what happens. Type any numbers you want here. I'll just have 25 and 19. I could type any. I'm gonna click add, and I get, oh, a really unexpected thing. What happened? Any ideas? No ideas at all? What happened? Did you get it? Did it add for you?
It concatenated them instead of adding them.
Yeah, exactly. It concatenated them. That's because whenever we type it, because I typed 25 here and then 19, right? And then it just put 25, 19. It didn't actually add them. It just lined it up. That tells us that these are not numbers. They may look like numbers, but they're not. They're not behaving like numbers. So they're strings. So we have to figure out a way to tell JavaScript to treat these as numbers and not as strings. There's more than one way to do this. And JavaScript is always changing. So let's try this first. Now this is a little bit, I'll do this in 2 steps. So this is the value, right? That value of the first box goes into N1. And the value of the second box goes into N2. But they go into N1 and N2 as strings, right? Instead of as numbers. So I want to convert N1 and N2 from string to number. So that means here and here, what I can do is put them in a function that does that exactly, right? And so N1 is a string, N2 is a string right now, but to convert them, one way is using the uppercase function number and putting the value inside like that. Let's see if that helps us. And it does. So that's telling us the JavaScript to look at this value and convert it into a number. Then it can add it properly. Okay. I'm actually going to do the next one. I'm just going to copy and paste this for subtract. Technically, I don't really need to do it for subtract, right? Notice we already get the value. It already it treats them as numbers, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, just so I remember. So just to make sure that it does. So it still works. Right. It's the same here. So because the plus sign can either add or concatenate, it will do concatenate because it assumes that these are strings, but the others, subtraction, multiplication, and division, can only work on numbers, so it treats them as numbers automatically. But I like to be consistent, so I'm going to do them all the same. So now I can add and subtract the same two numbers. Add produces 44 for me, subtract produces 6, multiply 475, and divide 1.3, blah, blah, blah. Now, you can see that we have 4 different functions here. And if you look at them, they're awfully repetitive, right? They basically have all the same lines of text. We see console log in all 4 of them. We see this in all 4 of them, right? And the only difference in each of the 4 is the third line of the definition. So when we have that kind of repetition, there's always going to be ways to simplify, so you type less code. We're not going to do that today. We'll do that in the next class. So we'll come back to this next Tuesday, and we'll look at it again and see if we can figure out a way to simplify it, to reduce the amount of code that we type to make it more efficient. Okay, but it works. I'm happy with the way it works. So making things work is number one. Making it more efficient, that's down the line, right? Just get it to work first, and if you can make it more efficient, even better. But it's not 100% necessary every time. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do is I don't want to necessarily put it in the console. The user is not going to look at the console because they don't probably know that the console exists. I want the results to be printed out into the page. Let's say in a spot underneath the buttons, right? I need to create a spot for it to put those numbers. So that means I need to go back to my HTML. And I need to create a spot here. I'll create it, put it under the buttons. It's just going to be another div with a different ID. Let's call it results. So that's, instead of putting it into the console, I'm going to have it put it directly into the web page in a place here underneath the buttons. And that's where I put my div. So I'm going to go ahead and style this a little bit. Oops. Just a tab, just like I did the others. Just like I did buttons and just like I did IMG. So styles. So I have buttons, I have IMG. When we put results here. Basically the same as the others. I can just copy and paste that. If I want to put a temporary color there, just so I can see it, make sure it appears. And there it is. So that's where the numbers are going to appear. maybe this height is too much. What if I put these heights at 100 instead of 150? It's a little bit better, I think. We could probably even do it less. How about 80? Even better. So let's make this 80 also. And let's make this 80 as well. Why not? All right, I'm gonna just get rid of that color though. So where that pink box is where the number, the results of when we click on the buttons are gonna appear instead of down here in the console. I'm gonna stick the number right here. Okay. Now, how about, since we're gonna be planting numbers into results, let's make those numbers big and bold, right? So color, oops, the numbers, what's the color of the number going to be? So something like, let's make it yellow. Okay, we'll see if that is what we want. So hopefully, whatever we type here is going to stick a number and it'll be bold and big and yellow right here in the center. Right, because that's yellow. This is pretty big. Not quite as big as the title, which is at 42, but still big, and it's going to be centered. Okay. Okay. So now we got to figure out how to stick it into the page. And we already know how to do that, I think. So we're going to go to the script. And instead of console log, which I'm going to comment out in these functions, remember document.get element by ID. And I've just created that ID called results. So I'm going to get that ID and I'm going to put it into the web page. If you want to put something directly into a web page, it's always inner HTML. And there is where we put, in this case, S. Instead of in the console, right? We're putting S into the HTML. Right, so let's save and reload, add, there it goes. We haven't done the others, but at least add works. We can put any numbers we want. 255, 389, add 644. Okay, let's do the others exactly the same way. Oops, did not mean to do that. This is going to be D this time. This is going to be P. And this is going to be Q. All right. Add, subtract. Oh, I didn't save, I guess, and then didn't reload. So add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. done. Well done. Did that work? Yes, no, maybe? Of
Can you go back to the CSS?
course, yeah. All the results, right?
Can you go back to the JavaScript when like after?
Yeah. Are you done, Nick?
Yeah, I'm good.
How's it going? You guys need me to look at your code, help you out, or are you doing okay? Excuse me.
I think I might if you don't mind.
Say that again?
Can I put mine up?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Let me stop sharing. Okay. All right, show me. Show us. So you get an error. Let's take a look at your error. Cannot set properties of null setting inner HTML, add it. Okay. So let's see.
Might be some typos, I feel like.
Probably. Yeah, that's common. So this just cannot set properties of no. So your script of one line 40, it says. So it doesn't like that line 40. Oh, you have a space there before the I and inner.
Right here.
Yeah. Take that out. Yeah. Now I'll save and try that again and see what happens. You have to reload your page, right? Make sure you reload your page. Yeah. All right, still same thing. Okay, let's take a look. All right, can you go to your index? Oh, you didn't, oh, results, you put S there. The name of your ID is results.
Wait, right here?
Results with, no, at the end,
Oh,
results.
sorry.
Yeah, because in your other, in the script, you put result. All right, see how you have S there and all those. So let's try now, see what happens.
Just reload it.
Nada. Okay, maybe it's something to do with the color of your text. Yeah, go to your styles. Color. Well, that looks fine. Oh, you spelled results wrong here too. All right, try that. All right, so some of those are not working. You get 0 for subtract. Oh, you don't have any numbers. Put numbers there in the boxes. Type numbers in the boxes.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. Subtract is not working. So, but let's click on divide. Multiply and divide. So divide is not working properly either. So click on multiply. Okay, that doesn't work either. Okay, so let's take a look at your script. So some of your functions are not operating properly. So S equals number plus, that one works, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
it's
N,
because he put number one for all of them in both N1 and N2. It says number one in the ID. You see that where it says N2 and subit and multit.
Right
It
here.
so
says,
yeah, I
it
see,
says
look,
number
yeah,
one.
line 45,
Mm-hmm.
go to where you have the ID. Line 45, where what's between the quotes is the ID. Line 40, right? You
Yeah.
have number 1 twice.
Oh, like ID right here, right?
No. Put number, no. It's number 1 and number 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, all right.
Thanks, Nick.
So, okay. Yeah, I got it.
And then divide. Awesome. Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Good. You're welcome. Anybody else? Easy to make little mistakes when you're copying and pasting. Really easy. Nobody else? Everybody else is good?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I cannot.
Uh-huh. Okay. You're talking about styles more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me look at your text. So you have in text txt looks fine. My txt, wait, let's go in here. Hold on a second. My txt. Okay, so yeah, so those are just margin 5 width 22%. So you should put for yeah, you got that right. Okay, now go to the HTML, txt, you don't have IDs for the buttons. So you're going to put in the buttons line 18, 19, 20, and 21, right? Where right before where it says type equals button, right before type. No, type. Well, that's fine too. No, so get rid of that. Delete that. So do you see where it says type equals button? Yeah, so right before that, click right before that and put ID equals I'm s- I'm sorry, my bad. My bad. I'm doing this wrong. Never mind. Get rid of that. I'm crazy. Hold on a second. Let me see what's going on here. Why isn't it? So you have your class down. I see you have a class. I didn't see that before. Class equals button btn. Okay. It's in the buttons. So let's go to your CSS.
Swing full.
Put btn there. Get rid of that s. There you go. Now,
Oh, good.
okay. But it works when you click on them?
Yeah, it works.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Nobody else? All right. So how about we take a break? It's 11:10. Give you 15 minutes. We'll come back at 11:25. Okay. And we'll do some more of this stuff. All right. So I'll see y'all in a minute. Okay, here we are again. Y'all there?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we know how to use variables. We know how to use buttons and call functions. We know how to get information out of text boxes. And we know how to put information into the web page, right? That's what these numbers are, right? We took it out of the text boxes and we put it into the page itself. Okay, we're gonna do one more button. And that is going to require me to teach you about an important type of statement that makes comparisons, or really that makes judgments. So let me share my screen again. So we're going to go to the index and add another button there. So I'm just going to copy and paste the last one and add it to the bottom. I'm going to call this for the value compare. And it's going to create a function I'll just call compare. Or let's call it compit, since we're going to follow that pattern that we established, compit. So fifth button here, that means that I have to change the CSS a little bit so that it fits, right? So now we have another button underneath here, which we want it to be in line with the others, if we're going to keep it with the same structure, because that looks kind of funny. So that means in my CSS, instead of 22%, let's try 18% and see if that works. Not quite, 17%. Yeah, 17% works. So 17% makes all 5 of them fit. So what I want to do is be able to click on this button and have it compare these numbers. And the relationship between numbers is less than, equal, greater than, or equal to, right? It can only be those 3 things. The first number can only be either less than, greater than, or equal to. That's the only 3 possible relationships between the numbers. So that's how what I want to do. But instead of the others where we just add or subtract or divide, here we have 3 possible answers. 3 possible answers. So we have to be able to tell the computer to choose between which answer. Which one of these is the right one? So if the first number is less than the second number, then we want it to say less than. However, if the first number is greater than the second number, we want it to say greater than. Alternatively, if they're the same number, we want it to say equal to. So there's 3 possible options here. When you have multiple options, one of the ways to make that decision between one or another is what we call an if statement, a conditional statement. So we want to get the answer less than if this is less than that, right? That's the condition. If the first number is less than the second number, right? We want less than. If the first number is greater than the second number, we want greater than. So those are conditions. So the statement is what we call an if statement. So let us go here. And we're just going to go ahead and create this function. I called it compit, remember? Compit. I'm not going to deal with these numbers yet. I'm just going to put some random numbers here. So, and first I want to show you the if statement. if statement looks like this. It's similar to a function, but you have the word if. What we put between the parenthesis after the if is the condition. So if 25 is less than 100, then what we want here is, let's say, console.log blah, blah, blah. So the condition is that, right? If this evaluates to true, so I'll put so if this condition, which is between the parenthesis after if this evaluates to true, then this is going to happen, meaning we'll get something down here, right? Let's see. Hopefully, since we know this is true, hopefully we'll see blah, blah, blah in the console. So I'll reload my page, press compare, and I see blah, blah, blah. If I put 125 here, then this is no longer true, right? This does not evaluate to true. So I should not see blah, blah, blah in this case, because this is not true. So when I reload the page, compare, nothing happens. So if this evaluates to false rather than true, then it skips everything between the parentheses, right? If this evaluates to true, it looks at what's between the parentheses and does that. If this evaluates to false, then it just skips whatever's between these braces here. Just skips it entirely. Pretends like it's not there. Now, let's say we want it to do something if it's false, right? So this only happens if it's true. Well, if we wanted to do something else, a different thing, if it's false, which it is right now, false. Right now it does nothing. But what if we wanted to do something different? Well, we would add else here. It's like otherwise, right? Do this if this is true. If the condition is true, do this. Otherwise, do this other thing. Let's put yada, yada, yada. So if it's true, we get blah, blah, blah. If it's false, we get yada, yada, yada. That's me talking all the time. Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. All right, compare. Yada, 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 because this evaluates to false. If we put back to 25 instead of 125, this is going to evaluate to true again. So we'll get blah, blah, blah. All right. But we don't want blah, 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 or yada, yada, yada. We don't want to use these numbers. We want to use the numbers that the user types here, right? And compare those two. Okay, fine. We're just going to copy and paste these statements here to get the numbers and put them in the N1 and N2. I'll just do that. N1 and N2 there. Now, instead of 25 and 100, I'm going to put N1, N2, right? Now, if N1 is less than N2, that means if this is true, if N1 is less than N2, I want less than. If N1, if this is false, though, one possible answer could be greater than. Let's start there. So I'm going to put 10 here and 15 here. All right, so 10 and 15. Compare less than, which is true. 10 is less than 15. So if I put 20 here, though, that's going to be false, right? This will evaluate to false. If the first number is 20 and the second number is 15, then this is not, N1 is not less than N2. So I get greater than that time. Excuse me. But there's a third possibility. What if they're both the same? What if I put 15 in both of them? What happens? Well, let me reload my page. 15 are in both. And I put compare. It says greater than. What the hell happened there? Well, that's because this statement evaluated to false. Remember, this only happens if it's true. This happens if it's false. And this is false. So it did this anyway. So what I need to do, if I wanted to actually evaluate equality in addition to less than and equal to, less than and greater than, I need to have another if statement here. So we do else if N1 is greater than N2. So if this statement evaluates to true, then we'll get this. If this evaluates to false, then it skips this and it goes to the next one. And then it evaluates the next condition. If this condition evaluates to true, then we get this. But what if both of these evaluate to false? Well, then we need the else. So if it's greater than, we get, if it's less than, we get less than. If it's greater than, we get greater than. Otherwise, we get equal to, because that's the only other possibility. We don't need an if here, because we know that if this evaluates to false and this evaluates to false, if it's neither less than nor greater than, then it has to be equal to. All right, let's try that again. Pressing compare, equal to. All right. Excuse me. Okie dokie. Now, a couple things. I don't want it to appear in the console. I want it to appear here, like the other results. And I want to know what is greater than what, right? So I'm going to concatenate. I want to know, for example, right now I have numbers 15 and 15. So I wanted to say, not just equal to, but 15 is equal to 15, right? So that means I have to concatenate here. I never know what numbers the user is going to type in the boxes. So I can't type numbers 15 is equal to 15. I can't do that, right? Because it could be a different number, set of numbers that they type. So I can't do that. I have to use the variables n1 and n2. So I'm going to concatenate here. So n1 plus, and I have to put a space here because we want a space between the number and the word equal to, and is equal to space plus n2. And let's see if that works though, before I go any further. So n1 is the first number, n2 is the last number, and then we have is equal to with spaces in the middle. Right? Reloading and compare. 15 is equal to 15. If I put, say, 38 and 38 there, it should say 38 is equal to 38. 38 is equal to 38. Okay, I can just do the same exact thing for the others. And that should work for all of them now. All right, let's put different numbers. 92. 92 is greater than 38. 200. 92. Oh, it says 92 is greater than 200. Huh? Okay. What's going on here? I did something wrong. 1 and 2. Let's compare. It says 1 is less than 2. What about 3 and 2? 3 is greater than 2. Well, 3 and 4. 3 is less than 4. What about 25 and 400? 25 is less than 400. What about 2500? 2500 is less than 400. Now see, it's making an error here and I'm not sure why. Everybody see what's happening here? What do you get when you put 2500 and 400? I've never seen that before. And I've been teaching this for a million years. 2500 is less than 400. How is that possible? How does that evaluate?
I get the same thing you get.
It's strange, right? We're converting it to number. Let's see. Let's see. I don't understand what's going on. And I get no errors. If n1 is less than n2, and how could that be? 100, 1. Okay, 201, 301, 901, 1000. Okay, 2000. Okay, 2500. All right. 10. All right, it's working now. 20 and 25. Okay, 250, 400. But then 450 again. There's a bug here. Now it works, but something. What about 350? Okay, no, so something between 300 and 350. What about 290? Huh. 240? 250? What about 251? Wow, something weird. That's so weird. It doesn't like anything above 250. It thinks, what if I put 2600 here? What about 261? It's just something really, that's so weird.
I think it's like you have to retype it, something to do with it.
No, I did that already and it doesn't work. So if I delete it and reload the page, right? And
Yeah.
then 2500 and 251, it's less than.
Oh,
Really strange. What about
If I put 90 and 100, it says 90 is greater than 100.
so we get unexpected results. What about 250.1? I'm trying to figure out. Okay, 2500 is great, but 9, right? 9. So that's true. 9. All right. What about 251? It doesn't like it. Super strange. And you put 90 for the first number and then 100 for the second. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's really weird. There's like some weird. Okay, so let me try something else. It worked fine for the others, but let's see. Oh, of course. Hello, stupid. What I didn't do. We didn't do something, right? In the others, it's because they're strings. We're converting the string to number. Oh, why didn't I think of that? But we didn't do that for this yet, right? So we're not converting n1 the string to number, and we're not converting n2 string to number. We're just using them as strings. And so we get weird, unexpected results. I think this is the reason. So now here I'm adding and subtracting, and I'm doing it right before I put it into another variable. I can actually put this whole thing into the number function and have it convert it to a number before it even puts it into the variable. So I can do this number, all of that, right? All of this gets put into the number function and it converts it to a number before it even sticks it into the variable. Let's see if that works. All right, let's do 90 and 100. got it to work. All right, let's do 2500 and 251. All right, so I think that was it, obviously, I think. The annoying thing is sometimes because that was working and then all of a sudden it's hit certain numbers and it didn't work anymore. I don't know what the rhyme or reason is, but so it started, it treated them as numbers up to a point. And then it didn't anymore. So here we go. We got that to work. Sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes you get, most of the time you're going to get errors here, right? But sometimes it works and it thinks it's working properly, but we get unexpected results, right? Like that. And so there's no errors to tell us what's wrong, but we can tell by the way it's functioning that it's wrong. So the last part of this is I want to stick the results into here, right? With document element by ID. So instead of sending it to the console, I'm going to put it into the page. So document.get element by ID results, inner HTML. Because I don't have space here, I'm going to click on the next line. And I want to put this right into the HTML. Ooh, what happened? That? Okay. I'm actually just going to delete that because I think it's clogging up the code and making it look like too much stuff is going on. Okay. Document.get element by ID results. Inner HTML equals. So I just replaced console log with document.get element by ID. See, hopefully that'll work. All right, that works, right?
It works.
Okie dokie. Anybody not getting it to work? Having issues? Okay. Let's see. I want to do one more thing that sort of plays off this conditional. And that is with the image. Okay. All right. So if everybody got this to work, we're going to go back here for a second. We're going to add another link here for another script file in the index. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. I'm going to change it to script 2, right? Script 2. Okay, that means I need to create another script file in my JS folder. Call it script 2. Okay, now everybody has an image in their images folder. If you don't have one, make sure you put one in there. In our index, we have this div, right, with the ID of img. We're going to stick an image in there. Okay. And we're going to make it happen automatically when the page loads. So remember, if we were to just try to stick an image in here, we could use document dot get element by ID and then use the img ID. And if we want to stick an image in there, we're putting something into the page, right? So we use inner HTML to do that. If we want to put something directly into the page, and then we put equals. And in this case, it's not just text, it's a whole image, right? So we put the tag img src, because we're already between quotes. We can't put double quotes, we have to put single quotes. And then equal, sorry, I forgot to put the equal sign. And then we have to tell it to look in the images folder. And then the name of your image, mine is called sunset.jpg. Close my single quotes, and then close the tag. This is not going to work. We're going to get an error, which we've gotten in the past. So when I run the page, we get this error here. It says document.getElement by ID is null. We got that error on Tuesday. And that's because, if you remember, the reason we got that on Tuesday is because the browser reads the code and it's getting to this script right here. It hasn't read any of this yet, so it hasn't done this yet. So it reads up to this point from top to bottom. Okay, I have to go look at that script now. Then it goes over to the script and looks at it and it says, okay, great. I'm going to put the image into the img ID. But it doesn't exist yet. The img doesn't exist until way down here. And it's only started reading up to here. So we have to tell it to wait until the whole page has loaded, all that code first. Then put the image in there. So we use the window dot on load here to create a function. And we put equals function. So it only is going to run this function once the window has loaded. Okay. Let's see if that works now. And it does, puts it in there. It's too big. That is on Tuesday. In my case, way too big. So that's a CSS issue. So I'm going to go to my CSS. IMG. This time I'm going to use the IMG tag, right? So it's inside the IMG ID, and it's the IMG tag inside the IMG ID. I shouldn't have named this IMG. I should have just named it something else because it's too similar to the tag name, but whatever. I've already done it, so width 100%. So this is the tag, right? This is the ID. Because in the index, we have the ID, right? IMG. I should have named it something else, but that was dumb of me because it's confusing, I know. So the IMG tag inside the IMG ID. And we're limiting it to 100% of the browser. Okie. Let's try something else too. In addition to the image, I want it to be to put, maybe I shouldn't try this yet, but I'm going to try it. I wanted to put a button. I'm not going to do this. Too many variables here. I'm going to put go ahead and we'll do that in another class. I'm going to go ahead and put another button here. So I'm going to copy it. It's going to be the 6th button. We're going to call it show hide. Show hide. So let's just, what's the function going to be? Show hide, I guess. Show hide. Okay. Let's reload the page. It goes underneath here. I want it to be in line with the others. So that's another CSS issue again. I have to reduce the size one more time. So CSS. Let's try. Oh, 13 it is. 13 for the buttons, so they all fit. Show hide doesn't fit perfectly. I'll style these buttons another day so everything looks nicer. So what this button is going to do is going to make this image appear and disappear. So when I click on it, it'll hide it. When I click on it again, it'll make it come back. Okay. Y'all with me? This will be the last thing we do today. So we have these buttons that are calling functions, and the function that this one is going to call, which doesn't exist yet, so that's why I get an error when I click on it, is going to make this image appear and disappear whenever I click on it. All right. In the script already, this is what makes it get there in the first place, right? All right, I'm going to create a variable at the top. So this loads image into page when after document fully loads. Declare a variable for image visibility. So I'm just going to call that V. Okay. Now, before the page loads, there's no image, so it can't be visible or invisible. It's just, it doesn't, there's no image to be visible or visible yet. So, but when we get to this function, that's when the image becomes present and visible, right? So I'm going to give this variable a value once the image becomes present, like it is right here, present and visible. I'm going to say v equals visible. So that makes sense because in this function is when the image becomes visible, right? So I'm going to say now that the image is visible, then v is equal to visible. So I'm going to use this variable to help make it disappear and show up again. I need a different function for that, right? I need that show hide function. This is the function that just makes it arrive in the page once the page loads. But I need a different function for making it appear and disappear to show and hide it. So I'm going to call it, which I already did. I created the name for it, right? Show hide right here. So function show hide. Function to make image appear. This up here. Okay. So right now the image is visible. So this function is going to do two things. It's going to either make the visible image invisible or make the invisible image visible, right? So we have to first determine if the image is visible. We're not actually going to determine if the image is visible. We're going to determine if V is equal to visible. We're going to determine if V is equal to visible. V is just a variable and has a value of visible, right? Right now, V does have a value of visible. So if I put determine if variable V is equal to visible, right? That's what, so if we need to ask that question, if we're going to make a decision, we use the conditional if else, right? So if V is equal to, has two equal signs, if V is equal to visible, well, I'm not going to make the image do anything yet. I'm just going to say, send something to the console to to see if this works. So console.log, blah, blah, right? So if V is equal to visible, which we already know it is, but let's just make sure this works. If V is equal to visible, then we should see this in the console, right? When we call the function, all right? So reloading my page, clicking on show hide, and we see blah, blah, because it's true. V is equal to visible, right? Okay. Now, what do I want to do if V is visible? Well, ultimately, that's going to affect the visibility of the image. But once it's visible, what do I need to do to it next? I need to tell it to be invisible, right? So if I determine that V is visible, is indeed visible, if I've determined that, yeah, it is visible, then what do I want to do next? I want to convert it to invisible. I want to make it invisible, right? So if V is visible, then I need to change it so that it's invisible. V equals hidden, which I'm going to call hidden. I'm going to take this console log out. So if V is visible, we're changing it to hidden. Else, what if V is not visible but is hidden? Well, else we want to, if it's hidden, we want to change it back to invisible, right? V equals visible. Do you guys understand my logic here? So what I want to do is I have this image. If the image is already visible, I want to hide it, make it hidden. If the image is already invisible or hidden, then I want to change it so that it's visible, right? So V stands for the visibility of my image. Right now it's visible, right? So what I want to do, if it is visible, then I want to change it to hidden. Okay. All right. Now, after my conditional, at the very end here, let's console.log V. So it starts out V is visible, right? That starts out in the beginning. V is visible when the page loads. So when I hit show hide, we'll see hidden. Because remember, if V equals visible, it changes it to hidden. If I click on it again, it goes back to visible. If I click on it again, hidden, visible, hidden, visible, hidden. It goes back and forth from one to the other because we're telling V to change from visible to hidden and then back again to visible. So it's like an on-off switch, right? Is that confusing? Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So I'm telling the pretend like it's not about the image, right? I mean, this image is just there incidentally. Let's just think about the value of the variable. We're saying V from the this happens when the page loads, right? So I'm saying V is visible when the page loads. Then when I click on the function, click on the button, it calls this function and it says, it looks at the variable V and says, hey, if V is visible, then change its value to hidden. So I click on this, and even though it started as visible, because it's asking if it's visible, it's automatically changing it to hidden. And so when you do the console log, the value of V was visible, but now it's hidden. Okay, now if I click on it a second time, it's going to come back here and ask, is V equal to visible? Well, no, because I just changed it to hidden, right? The first time I clicked it, it changed V from visible to hidden. So now V is hidden. This is false. So it skips this part and it goes directly here and it makes it visible again. So this little conditional here switches visible to hidden and then hidden to visible every time you click it. So it's going back and forth, visible, hidden, visible, hidden, visible, hidden. It's an on-off switch. Okay, I can use visible and hidden to affect the visibility of my image as well. Does that work? All right. Now, I don't really need the hidden, visible here, but I'm going to leave that in for now just so we can see. The value of the variable changes every time you click on the button, back and forth from hidden to visible, which changes the visibility of the image. So you can see, this is basically CSS, right? So we can, it's not CSS, but it's akin to it. And so we can affect the styles. We can use buttons and change the colors of everything. We can change positions, we can change colors. We can, we can do all kinds of stuff with JavaScript. So it's a very useful to be able, like, let's say you want to change the let's say you have a website that's all monochromatic gray and black and white, and you want to change it to blues. You can click on a button to make it change to blues, or maybe you can click on a different button to make it change to reds, right? So you can change the color scheme if you want to of a page by doing this. Okay, I think that's plenty for today. A lot. We did a lot. If you need to talk to me about your project or anything at all, feel free to hang out for a minute afterwards. And don't forget that your projects are due tonight at just before midnight. Okay. All right. That's it. I hope you have a nice weekend. I hope you're not too stressed out about finishing your projects. And I'll see you on Tuesday. Okay.
Okay, bye. Have a
Bye.
good day.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Professor.
Yeah, thanks.
Have a good one.
Professor.
Yeah.
So, will we like finish up? It just we just have the hidden and the visible by the console, right? Not by the actual page, right?
Oh, it does affect the page. Let me show
Oh,
you.
it does.
Let me share my screen again. See, you see my image here?
Yeah.
When I click on it, it makes the image appear and disappear.
Oh,
And that's because of this line of code.
all right.
Does that not work for you?
Yeah, it's not.
All right, so let's take a look at your code. You get any errors?
No, it doesn't hit any errors though. It just.
Let's just take a look. Oh, you spelled visibility wrong. After the S, put I instead of A. No A. All right, that should be it.
Okay. One more thing, one more last thing. Do you want to look at the like this line right here?
Say that again. Oh, I see. What's your problem? It's white, right? Let's see. That's because get rid of that parenthesis, that brace right there where you are. There you go.
Yeah.
That was no, that one's good. That one was good. I'm still looking. So else if, okay, it looks otherwise. Oh, you did. No, that's fine. Save that and see what happens.
So this price for like.
Oh yeah, so you're getting errors. I see other problems. So go back. I saw another problem.
Yeah.
Do me a favor.
Uh-huh.
In line 74, right after the equal sign, hit enter. And then, okay, good. Now you see that parenthesis that you have there? Get rid of that. It's extra. Okay.
Oh.
Right. Now do the next in the same line. Just hit enter. I think it just makes the code a little clearer. Oh, you put it back. Yeah, get rid of that and hit enter.
This one too, right?
Yeah. Right. So that you just had extra. And then the last thing, you have an extra brace. So you don't have an extra brace, but in line 81, right before the brace, click there, right in front of the brace, and hit enter again. There. So, all right. So these braces are a little messed up, but no big deal. That happens sometimes. Hit tab. Okay, now go to the next line and hit delete. No, yeah, right there. There you go. That's the way it should look.
Oh, all right.
Okay. So let's try it now, see if it works. Save it, drive it.
So this one is for like okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Right.
Hmm.
Good.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. See you next week. Hey,
I have a quick question.
okay.
Please can you share the screen?
My screen, the
Yeah,
code.
Yeah. I have a question about the path.
About the what?
Path. Path. Path.
I'm sorry. Can you type it in chat?
Path.
Path. Oh, okay. This path here.
Yeah.
Okay.
The script underbar 02.js is in the JS folder. Right.
Mhm. Yes.
But why we don't have to use //
That's a very good question. That's because the script is being employed here,
Hmm.
and this is the index.
Uh,
So we can try and see what happens. Right?
yeah, I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that's a great question. I mean, the script technically is in the JS folder, so we have to tell the script, if it were in the script, to come out of the script and then look in the images folder, right?
Mhm.
But because the script is being deployed here,
Hmm.
then we have to tell it from this location.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's all.
It's confusing, but that's the way it goes. Yeah. So we have to, because we could have typed that script here, right? It's because of where the script tag is, right? The script tags are here in this page. So it's from here that we're telling it to go look for the image.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
You too. See you next week.